Hi, I'm Elinor Silverstein, and I'm here with Linda Tellington-Jones and Roland Klieger. And I have had this desire all of my life to ask people who have wonderful relationships to explain what it is that they do that makes it special. Because as I look around in the world, in most people's lives I know, relationships are complicated. Maybe they weren't designed to be easy in the first place. But the thing is I wonder when I see some people where it's just more peaceful and easy. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And so I'm here talking with them, and you'll hear my voice ask a couple questions maybe from behind the camera. And I'd like to let you hear from them what it is that they do. So, Roland and Linda, I know I'm behind the camera and it's not perfect in this interview, but I see you two as a couple that the way you look at each other and the way you acknowledge each other and the way you talk with each other is really done with caring and respect. And I know that people desire to be able to have a little bit more of that. And I'm not looking to help share perfection with people, but can you tell a little bit about what is that you have learned in your life that when you finally came together, you realized to make something that is different, that is your relationship with each other? Can you tell me something that you chose to do? Because I would think it's a choice.
I don't think you make a choice to fall in love.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
But plenty of people fall in love and then they bicker happily ever after. So how is it that you're not bickering happily ever after?
Our goals coincide, and I enjoy having a goal and being able to support Linda's work. And I think both of us are very accepting of accepting of one another and one another's quirks that might be upsetting to others, but to us are not.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, because what I see are in many couples proverbial hidden eye rolls. Like
Really?
somebody says something and they may hide their rolling their eyes over to the side, but I can see it energetically.
Wow.
There's an eye roll that happens, like, oh, there he goes again, or there she's doing that thing. I don't even pick that up between the two of you. There's an acceptance. And can you talk a little bit how you do that?
Well, I mean, for me, this is my third marriage. And I am so blessed because Roland and I have been friends since, how many years now have we figured out? Since you were 17 when we met and I was 20, right?
Yes.
And Roland was a senior in a Chadwick school, and I was senior girls dorm mother, and so I taught Roland to ride in those days, and he was a really I always admired him as a young man, and I had a really feeling of admiration, actually, I have to say, and then when we left school and Roland came to prep school, Chadwick school, and then Roland came to our ranch and spent weekends because he wanted to have a ranch in Canada, and so he was with us with the horses, and always he conducted himself in such a respectful, wonderful way, and then when we had a reunion at our ranch, like 10 years after the school, you came up, and he had a wife and two kids, 2 and 4-year-olds that are now my kids. Just so exciting.
Mm.
There was again a feeling of support from Roland. And so when after all those years of friendship, when we got together, which is a really interesting story in itself, actually, how we finally, came together when he was in Hawaii. It's really quite funny because in all those years, I was a long time between relationships, like many years alone, which was great for me because that's how I developed the work. But when somebody would say to me, "How's your love life, Linda?" Crazy question for somebody who didn't have one. I said a few times, listen, there are only two guys for me. One is my really great friend, and he's gay, and the other is Roland, and he's the only man that's like my dad. And I said I'd never marry again if there wasn't somebody like my dad. And I have the greatest respect for my dad, and I have this incredible respect for Roland, and his deep, deep goodness. I mean, I don't know many people. I don't know anybody else, actually, like you.
Well, and what I love seeing is that you both are very different in personality types.
You think?
But it's beautiful. There is a compliment that happens. And Linda, I watch how you are with him, and you are so deeply respectful to him and what his needs are, and to create the space that works for the two of you, and attentive to it. I watch it. You will stop what you're doing to make sure that checking in. And that's beautiful, but there's something more than that. And I don't know, can we?
No, I mean, I can tell you, it's practice. I mean, I know that there are some women who feel like they have to be right. And I don't feel like I have to be right about something, but I've worked with that. And I don't know that our relationship would have worked years before that. Because when we got married, a very famous astrologer sent us this videotape and said, or audio tape, and said that when we got married, the first thing we were going to have to work on was our passive aggression. I thought, yeah, Roland. Little did I know. I mean, what I used to do, because certainly in the beginning, if I did something that he didn't like, he would never criticize. He would just go away. And as soon as when he would do that, then I would go into like my go-to thing was, okay, I'm out of here. And that's been a lot. I can remember that so many years ago. If something didn't go my way, I just like disappeared or would never.
So you mean after you two got together this time in your life, you both had those tendencies and you created some correction in that? How did you do that? How did each of you do that? Because those are lessons right there.
Well, it was huge, and the thing is, because Roland had one habit, and that was, and I had to come to a place of understanding. Like if I did something that was embarrassing to him, like the few times where we really learned, and I mean, times that were important was we were in the Dusseldorf airport. And I have a tendency not to think when I, what's around me. If you can get around me, okay. So I walked out and in the lobby, and I put my suitcases down right in the way. And we got on the bus, and Roland wouldn't speak to me. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so it took a lot, because this is what I believe you were thinking. It's not your right to tell me what to do, but it was deeply embarrassing for Roland because I was putting other people out. And so I could easily have said, well, that's just the way I am, or I'm right, or whatever. But I've really worked on myself to practice the thing of learning to act and not react. I mean, I'm only 80. I still have a long way to go. right? But I decided around that incident, when finally he was able to tell me why he was just like so silent. Tell me why, and instead of me saying, well, so what, I dropped my bags, I understood that this was really embarrassing to him. And I chose to get that. And, you know, I hear women often say, well, it's just the way I am, or that's too bad.
And
Suck it
I
up.
wanted to ask you, and what would you say to all the people, men and women, who would say, well, that's just too bad, that's the way I am? Because that can be man or woman. What would you say to them here?
My interest on the planet is working on my compassion and my understanding for others. And so I chose at that point compassion over me being right. And I think it's about putting ego aside. And really, I really heard where he was. And I don't know if it's true, but I think that was a bit of a turning point when you really realized that I really realized why you were upset. You had a reason to be, as far as you were concerned. And so there were some times when Roland would stand in that kitchen and, man, I'd do something wrong and he didn't know how to tell, he didn't think, this is what I think, that you didn't think you had the right to tell me what was wrong. And so I said to Roland, after one incident like that, when I walked out the door and walked up the street to the corner, and I caught myself and I said, what? He doesn't even know I'm gone, first of all, so, you know, like, what's the big theater? But it didn't do any good. And so I said, Roland, we have to get help. Either we have to find counseling so that we can I can understand you, or we have to work it. And you know what? Counseling wasn't an option because it's really hard to find a counselor that will listen fully. And so we found a book that was written by friends of ours. And I can't even remember that book. Wasn't Jackie and Jacqueline, Jack and Jackie's book? And I can't remember that. It's a relationship book. And we just read it with each other. And
If you can remember it, can you
it's on
let
the
us
shelf.
know? Okay.
But I think that made a real turnaround. And I made a choice not to think that I'm right. It's my right to be who I am. No, this was another opportunity in relationship. Do I want to be in relationship or not? If I want to be in relationship, this is great potential for learning to understand Roland.
And wouldn't you say it's a little bit hard, maybe sometimes for women, maybe especially, to try to figure out how to hold their own and yet be with, instead of feeling bowled over and therefore being too dominant,
But
or
Jack,
being
yes. I mean,
so, because there's a blend of what can happen with different people.
I mean, really hard, because my tendency before, always, like I think many women, is to do everything for the man, give everything over for the man, and then be resentful.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And maybe the man becomes resentful too, because, I mean, who knows?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I believe relationship is such a deep possibility for learning about ourselves and about others. And the fact that I can sit here being 80 after 20 years of us being together, we've been, this year, 20 years together. And the respect that I have for you and the love that I have for you. Respect goes beyond love. You can love somebody and not respect them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can love them deeply, but
maybe a lot of
love.
people.
Yeah.
So, I kind of want to ask two questions. It was like, so that was what she worked on to help. Would you be willing to say what was the thing, or you don't even have to say what was the thing. Was there something that you found a way to work on with yourself to help the relationship be easier being with someone?
I just remember in that particular day when Linda was saying she walked out of the house and up the street, and actually as she was walking down these stairs, I said to myself, what would Jesus have done? Somehow that popped into my mind. And it reminded me to look at the big picture, be patient and be forgiving, and just realize that love is the important thing. And we had that.
Wow, I kind of don't have any more questions. That was so good.
It is about forgiveness. It is about forgiveness.
And maybe forgiving ourselves,
Oh,
Yes.
right?
yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Not just forgiving the other person, but forgiveness. It's the ho'oponopono. And maybe because we live here in Hawaii, that prayer ritual of forgiveness of ho'oponopono, maybe it has, and the aloha spirit.
Do you
Because-
practice ho'oponopono with each other? Can you say what that is? What is that prayer?
Do you want to say?
You know,
Yeah, because I don't have to practice ho'oponopono with Roland because it's a prayer ritual when somebody does something you don't like or doesn't suit you or you feel badly about. I mean, there's so many reasons. It's whatever the situation, it's like 4 sentences, and they can be said in varying order. There's no set order, and that is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, as though it's done, I love you. And I love the interpretation of that I love you. That's a hard one to understand because it's to say I love you to yourself. And the definition that I love of that, or the description of what that means at that point, one meaning is that I love the divine within me, and I can love the divine within you. Very different from loving the way you've reacted, or loving something about yourself, so it's without judgment, but it's that divine spark within you. And I have read numerous books on ho'oponopono, all very helpful, but that definition really helped me a lot.
So if there was anything, 1 or 2 things that you could say to people that worked for you, that you were talking about, that you could just offer to people, maybe to have as a lesson to think about in themselves, to be in their relationship, what might you say?
I would say to be patient and be aware, and most importantly, be respectful.
And respect is for me, I come from the place of I see your soul, I see you, I see your soul. And I am so grateful because I do not think we would have had the same relationship. I had to learn to be patient, and the fact that this is my 3rd marriage, and 4th long-term, well, my second marriage was only 2.5 years, so that wasn't a long-term. That was an arranged marriage that worked to arrange out of it quite nicely. But I've had these long other relationships in which I've had really chance to practice and learn. And one of the things that I think has made a real difference to us is that we make a point to share what are 3 blessings. You know, what were 3 blessings today from the day before we go to sleep, before we go into dream time? And the blessing is the fact of this deep respect.
That look. That was the look that I saw last night while we were getting the table ready, and you 2 sat at the table and nobody else was there, but I was like the child at the table as I came by and just watched you 2 gaze into each other and it was fixed, meaning you were connected. Do you remember that moment?
But it happens often.
It happened. What is that?
It is connecting, seeing the one in each other.
Seeing the one.
Divine, the divine
Yeah.
within.
Because I saw you both almost get brighter and brighter. If I could see light around you, it got brighter and brighter. And I felt privy to be in a moment that was so beautiful that I was enjoying it. The beauty of that, and said, you know, I want that, and what is that, and how can we share that with people?
To see the beauty in the person in every situation, even when they're perhaps not being their ideal selves, to see the fact that you have that relationship, that and see it as a blessing, whatever that is. See the opportunity for being all you can be, and seeing that, holding this. I say the word beauty is what comes to me. It's interesting, holding that beauty within them. And to me, what that literally means is that divine spark that's in each one of us on the planet. And when I see that, when I choose to see that, no matter what is going on or how that person is being, I believe something else, it opens to happen, to a new level of understanding and deep, deep, deep appreciation. It's like cell to cell and soul to soul, and being to being.
Thank you both so much.
Our pleasure. And I love this forehead to forehead. It's such a beautiful way of being.
So I'm hoping that by you getting the opportunity to listen to amazing people and human beings who have learned to do the work on themselves, to do the work with each other, and to make their lives better, because when their lives are better, all of our lives get better. And I'm wishing to share this with you.